Hello guys, so what you are seeing today on the screen is a cookbook on homemade cake preparation at a very basic level that I had recently released with a mixture of stickman drawings and actual cake preparation details. My idea was to give the readers some useful information in relation to cake preparation while also making the content a little more interesting with illustration. So as I am scrolling through, I would like to give you a brief overview of its contents. If you want to read the cookbook, the download link has been provided in the description below. There is an index on the left and an introduction on the right. In the contents, I have covered two iterations of cake making. The first is the wheat flour cake and the other is the all-purpose flour cake. Towards the right, I am giving a brief introduction to the cookbook and introducing our actors of the illustration, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who are greeting our readers. At some point, we are all bored of home food and crave for a change, and this is what Mr. Smith feels too and asks for a cake. Mr. Smith says, "My tongue has been giving me a lot of trouble lately. Can we do something different?"
Your tongue reminds me of you lately. What were you looking for?
Perhaps a homemade cake sounds reasonable during this lockdown.
Approved.
Woohoo! Oh, the cake has arrived. Oh dear. Oh dear. He's eating it now. Wait a minute. He's not opening his mouth. He's trying to say something. Yes, Mr. Smith, what are you trying to say? No, I can't hear you, Smith. Oh no, give way. Mr. Smith has thrown up. Give way for the things to fly out. Mr. Smith says, "Now that the gum is out of my mouth, oh sorry, the cake is out of my mouth, I can finally talk. I think my wife is better to work in a gum making factory."
Yes, honey. Did I hear something?
Nothing, Mr. Smith. Sorry, Mrs. Smith. The cake was great, and that was what we were discussing about. Oh, on the side note, Mr. Smith, I agree with you. She can try finding a job in the local gum making factory. 4 days after the fiasco, let us check out what Mr. and Mrs. Smith are up to. Mrs. Smith says,
Oh, honey, I'm trying a different version of the cake today.
"Awesome, honey. Oh God, I hope she did not see my face expression. The last time was a thick gum in my mouth. What's it going to be this time? Looks like I'm gonna be the lab rat until the experiment phase is over. How long can this go on?" Oh, the cake has arrived. Wow! What? The cake looks great. Must taste great too. Let me have a bite. Mr. Smith, I heard a snap. My tooth broke. Honey, can you fix an appointment with the dentist, please? As you have seen, I have added a lot of simple stickman illustrations to bring about a comical way of expressing the cake making and cake consuming experience. Although I do not intend this to be a cake making guide by any means, my wish is that this would inspire those who have never prepared cakes at home to give it a shot. Trust me, it is fun. If the stickman drawings which I just shared interest you, then I think you might be interested in how these illustrations were made. Although I am not a professional artist by any means, this is something I do as a hobby. This will hopefully set your expectations to the minimum. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you for watching.